A book just reached the top charts of Amazon, and it's written by AI. The book has a lot of stars, #1 bestseller. Imagine spending hours and hours slaving away at your craft, writing every single line, and then you look down the street and you see somebody who one prompted and got a significantly better result. This is a sad scenario. We're entering a new era where artists do not own the process. They now own the output. Pre-AI, we spent tens of thousands of hours mastering how to draw, how to type, style. Now the AI can do all that for us, and we are simply evaluators. And if you don't accept this reality, you will be left behind. This Atlantic article covers this book. Most self-published authors can only dream of writing something as popular as Daggermouth. Daggermouth has spent months on USA Today's bestseller list. It also tops a less prestigious list, one compiled by academics studying AI writing. And so in their research, they used a tool called Pangram, and they found that the book in question had about 60% AI written content. And one thing is also very clear. Readers of the book share the same sentiment. Here is an excerpt from the text. They collapse together, a tangle of sweat-slicked limbs and racing hearts. And it's appeared in a lot of different places very recently. And so I think we can all agree these AI detection methods are definitely not infallible. I think there's a good argument to be made about being written by AI, or having at least some form of assistance. And so the question then becomes, should we consider this to not be art? And how much of a book has to be written by AI before it is considered not art? As we said, right, artists own the output. Despite a book being 100% written by AI, which not saying this book is, let's say it is 60%, right? That's the claim we're currently seeing thrown around. Would you consider this to not be owned by the human, right? Is this now an AI's artwork? I will say, if it's good, it's good. I think if you're capable of producing a best-selling book, which this person seems to have achieved, and you manage to do it while using AI, power to you. Do I consider this person not an artist? No, because at the end of the day, they had to agree on the output. Hundreds of thousands of artists could try to do the same exact thing, and they'll fail at it. And so while the author didn't write every single line, I also don't believe this idea of one prompting it would ever succeed in reality. There's a very popular tweet going around about a guy who built an entire, basically Call of Duty clone in one prompt. And while on the surface, this looks really good, and you're thinking to yourself, oh man, if it can do this in one prompt, we're fucked, right? It's gonna steal everything. But let me tell you the reality of this. If you take two cases, 100 prompts versus a single prompt, the amount of AI influence in this is gonna be anywhere from 90 to 100%. Whereas if it's 100 prompts, it'll still be AI influenced, but the number goes down because you're refining it each time, right? The AI is gonna give you what it thinks you want, and then you refine it and you refine it. And so when you see a game like this, really what you're looking at is Opus's dream scenario. If 100 people sent this exact prompt, they're probably gonna get a very similar output to this. If you look at the prompt used to generate this game, you'll see it is quite simple. Really. He calls it Call of Duty. Here we can see the prompt that was sent to create this game. And one thing you'll notice right away is it is very simple. I want you to build a first-person shooter at the level of the most recent Call of Duty games. It should be utterly perfect, visually beautiful, and with every single thing done at AAA quality form, from textures to physics to anything you can think of. Sorry, I'm laughing. It reminds me of just make it secure. But really the gist here and the key takeaway from this, it let the LLM steer. Right, it does very little to influence the LLM's behavior here. And so when you see output like this, you'll realize this is really because it's in a dream scenario. And so the reason that matters is because if we look at something like a single prompt task, really the AI is gonna do what it's best at, and it's gonna get an output that probably won't change too much between each person. But as you send more and more prompts, this deviates more and more, right? If you look at the projects that were made with a single prompt, they will all look very similar at the end of the day. If we assume the prompts are quite similar, but with 100 prompts, the odds of you sending the same prompts over and over again and ending up with the same result, that just becomes less and less and less. And I believe this is where artistry can still survive. Although we accept that not every line is being written, and 60% may be written by AI, but you have to ask yourself how much effort went into this part. And at the end of the day, it is on the artist to own the output, as we've discussed. This article here, the whole premise of checking for human writing is daft from Moshe Hu, discusses the realities that, hey, it's too late. We're not gonna be able to prevent this, and realistically, the detection methods will never be perfect. So he goes on to say, I get why people wanna write, because it's good for you, because it focuses thoughts, because the the first sentence is usually rubbish and the seventh is often better because you learn cadence and structure and argument. And a key thing I want to call out here that I think is brilliantly expressed, a person can type 3,000 words by hand and have not a single thought pass through their head beyond the need to finish before lunch. Whereas a different person can dictate an idea and argue with a language model for an hour, reject 6 drafts, rearrange the whole piece, rewrite half of it, and publish something they understand down to a final comma. And so you really have to ask yourself in this case, AI slop versus human slop. The person that spent 100 prompts refining and understanding an output is truly a better result than somebody who just did it in one go and barely understood what they were writing down, just spewing information. And so I really do not believe that the art is dying. Artists really own the output. The process itself, yes, it is degrading, but their process really is just shifting. If you really think you're going to achieve a best-selling novel by just sending a prompt and then pasting that into Amazon, it is not going to happen. This book that we're seeing, odds are, maybe it was written 60% by AI, but I can tell you right now, you're not going to get 43,000 stars on Amazon and hit a bestseller list just by low-effort prompting. And it's also worth mentioning, the author is claiming that she did not use AI. There is some debate about whether possibly the publisher had an impact, but ultimately I think we can confidently say at this point there is some form of AI use in this writing from the evidence that we've seen. Now there's a common take that I see thrown around a lot, and I absolutely hate it, which is when people compare AI to calculators. AI is not the same as a calculator in terms of its impact. It's just not. Right? If we look at a calculator, the input that you put in is guaranteed to get the same output out. Whereas with an AI, it is a completely different story. Right? If I were to ask the AI, what color is the sky? It'll give you a blue. But maybe someday it'll give you a light blue. Maybe it'll give you a hex code, right? There are some variables to this that you can't always account for. And so it truly, utterly is not the same. Sophie Alpert describes there are no lossless transformations of natural language text. Good writing is a tool to clearly communicate ideas from your brain into someone else's. And as of 2026, AI models, despite their coding ability, are not yet at a point where their unedited output will achieve this goal. You as an author need to take time to make sure that all of the ideas in the writing are the ideas that you personally intend to convey. This part right here is what you own now. This is you. It is on you to decide what happens with this output. Does it go straight in the trash or does it go to freaking Amazon Bezos? This is your decision to make. Timothy Cook, not to be confused with Tim Cook, and he really argues that you have to understand the function that you're going for with the calculator. You cannot verify the AI's judgment without understanding the foundational cognitive work yourself. You can't verify the output without redoing the exact mental labor you were trying to save. The tool is replacing your thinking entirely. That's the opposite of delegation. It's substitution. And so he's really arguing against the idea of it being a tool. I do have some pushback on this. I think in the space of a calculator, we never have to verify its output, but there are cases of user error. If I'm feeding 100 numbers into a calculator, the verification is on what the human wrote. So there's still some level of evaluation here. Yeah, it's not the calculator's fault, but I think the problem with this article is he's assuming everyone is comparing AI to a calculator as a physical object, but really we're talking about it as an input and an output. And in the calculator's case, the variability is on the human, whereas in the AI case, it's AI error. But so just like the calculator, you own the output, right? If I tell you, hey, go run these numbers and you give me an output, if you give me the wrong answer, I can't go and blame the calculator, right? I have to blame you. At the end of the day, it comes down to your judgment. You're the person that gave me those numbers, and so I am blaming you. Nothing really changes here. The process is no longer something owned. The output is still something that you own. And as I said before, if it's good, it's good. It shouldn't matter what went into creating that good thing. If you choose not to do something or read something or watch something, whatever, because it was written by AI, that is your personal choice. But the moment somebody tells me that an artist is not an artist just because they used AI is the day I lose a bit of faith in humanity. There is an art to owning the output. There is an art to owning evaluation. And I think the discreditment of artists in this space that are using AI is something that people right now are hot on, but I think in the future will degrade over time. When they realize that, hey, at the end of the day, what matters is this worth my time? Did you put something in front of me that was valuable to me in any way? This is what matters here. And this is something that makes them an artist. So art truly is not dying. I think the question really is art changing? And the answer to that is yes. Calculators took our arithmetic, right? It made us not focus on mental math. GPS took our navigation. Before the GPS, you had to know things. You had to really understand everything around you and have tactics in your brain of how to navigate without technology. And so what will AI take? This is the question. Will AI take everything? I really believe this comes down to the user. It can take everything. You have to realize that through the advent of calculators, complex math became possible. GPS has allowed people to traverse areas they would have never been able to before, right? The amount of cognitive load in understanding where you're going and keeping track of everything is a big factor. And so AI is in an interesting case where really the things it takes from us, much like these two before, right? Because the reality is this is in your control too. You don't have to use a calculator for everything, and you really do not need to use GPS for everything. That is on your choice. I would argue that the benefits they give outweigh the cons, and I believe the same can be with AI, where truly just about everything has a higher ceiling. Anything you can think of, writing, drawing, coding, speaking, understanding, everything you can think of has some form where the ceiling can be raised due to AI. This raising requires you as the user to use it in a certain way. Because really there are two types of AI users. There's the partner AI user, and there is the whispering ear user. The partner AI user lets Jesus take the wheel, right? It gives it straight to the AI and says, hey, make this thing for me. Right, in the example of the video game, hey, here's what I want, go ahead and have fun. The whispering ear goes a little bit further, right? It lets Jesus take the pedal. You still make a lot of the evaluations and decisions. This method of using the AI is going to determine how much AI can take. If you're in the realm of using it, of having it do everything for you to where there's zero critical thinking involved, you run the risk of it taking everything that you could ever imagine. You will become a completely reliant knob of AI. But if you use it in a certain way where it's actually assisting the work that you're doing and you're constantly evaluating its output, you end up in a position where you get a higher ceiling and it is a net positive. Right? You end up in this situation where it's like the GPS and the calculator. And so in the realm of art, this is the same case. Anyone can write now. It doesn't matter if you speak a different language. It doesn't matter if you suck at writing. You can use AI to transform your output into something that people can understand and read. Anyone can make music. This was already true before. Not to say it's going to be good music, and also not to say it's going to be good writing, right? Let's be clear here. This is a very important thing to mention. This still requires your evaluation and critical thinking skill. But the point is, the barrier of entry here is so low that anyone can come in now. And anyone who is already in the game, right, if you're already good at writing, or you were already good at making music, or whatever your art form that you fancy, your ceiling has now gone up. But again, at the end of the day, you as the artist, you own this output. This is on you. This is on you to decide if this output gets sold, gets put on the internet. I do believe art is changing. And I think if you don't accept this, you're gonna be left in a bad state. Because when you allow AI to help you in these areas, guess what? You free up mental space. This allows you to work on other things that are more important, right? Let's be honest. You have about 70 years of your life that you get to live. Now that's assuming you're average. You might get a little bit more. You might even get less. If you choose to never use AI to benefit you in any way, guess what? All 70 years, 30% of that will be of waste. If you're a struggling artist and all you want in your life is to succeed as an artist, guess what? You're probably never going to get to the state that this author got to unless you use some form of assistant. Because even the top people are using these assisters now, right? Reality is you aren't Steven Spielberg, or what's that Harry Potter author's name? I forgot her name off the top of my head, so I'm going to use Jane Doe. You're not going to be these famous artists from the days of old, right? These artists got their fame before AI, and so they have an audience that will really travel with them for the rest of their life. But if you're a new up-and-coming artist, you're Steven version 2berg or Jane Doe Spree, guess what? You have a different bar to hit. You now need to use these tools to really accelerate and position yourself in a spot where you can take the new spot, right? These people are going to be old and die out. If you are a new artist and you want to take that throne, you really do need to think about using AI in some way. Accept that art is changing, don't fight it, and you'll be in a much better spot. And this extends itself to software. Ade Osmani published this article discussing the idea of software factories, which if you're familiar with loop engineering, this is basically a step up where it is full-on automation. I don't agree with it. I'll start by saying that. But what I do agree with is his perspective perspective on light and dark when it comes to development. And so the way he describes it in this article is that light has more human and dark is full autonomy. And while there are benefits to each of these, the reality is if you don't accept light as your methodology, you're going to run into a lot of issues if you just let Jesus take the wheel the entire way. Right? So he discusses here, you're trading judgment and concentration against speed and breakage. Sure, it'll be fast. Sure, you could write a 10,000 page book in one prompt if you really wanted to. But if you do this, you're accepting, first of all, it might suck ass. Second of all, you have to accept that there is a limited amount of human steerage that is going to actually give you a unique output. And as we've discussed, output is everything. This is what you own now. Your decision to release this is what makes you an artist, not the process that got you there. And so I know this is scary, right? If you're somebody who's an artist, you've dedicated your entire life to art. When you look at this, you might think to yourself, oh, it was all for nothing. But the reality is it's not. Absolutely not. The time you spent all those years being an artist, those are more critical than ever before because now you have to evaluate. A good artist knows a good output. Somebody who has never had any experience with drawing, coding, they are not going to have a good evaluation skill here. And so on the surface, it seems like, oh man, it's so simple. Just send a prompt and all this hard work that we put in is gone. But the reality is very different. The one that spent tens of thousands of hours on their craft is going to be better than anyone else at evaluation and decision. And they are going to have a better output at the end of the day. And so it is not for naught. I think the natural question there is that, hey, is there still value in learning programming, drawing, writing, etc.? The answer to that is absolutely, without a doubt, yes. Again, this evaluation part, when I mention this evaluation part, you have to realize this is not to be taken lightly. This is a very serious thing. Skimming will not work here. Right? When we're talking about true artistry and developing something meaningful, skimming the output is not going to get you that. This takes actual effort and it takes actual skill to be good at. And this is why there is still value in learning these things. I truly do believe there is still some value in learning programming. Yes, you don't need to learn the syntax specific, but honestly, I would say even then, there's benefit to it, right? The level of thinking you get when you truly understand a syntax and what goes into an algorithm impacts directly your evaluation skill. Some of these fields AI is even further on. Like I would say when it comes to drawing, it is very hard for AI to generate a good output here. This is still very far. Writing, I would say it is still very obvious that AI has written something. Not to say it's always bad, but there is definitely a long runway before AI could even do these in a good way, consistently. But even then, like let's say 30 years down the line, AI is able to knock these out, no biggie. There's still value in knowing how to evaluate it. What's gonna separate a good artist from a bad artist at the end of the day is signal to the noise ratio. The good artist is going to know from their years of experience actually working on it what it means to be a good output. The bad artist is going to send the first thing that comes out of the LLM's mouth and it might be okay. It might be okay. But when the bar has been raised so high, that okay is not good enough anymore. There's a ceiling that has changed and this just being okay with okay output is not going to work. It's just not. And so do not stop learning this stuff. If you are questioning, hey, should I go and get a CS degree? Well, there's more reasons than just that. If you're asking yourself if you should draw or write, whatever, yes, absolutely. Spend hours, tens of thousands of hours on this because it's still gonna matter. You're still gonna need these skills well into the future, forever. I believe art is changing and I think you need to accept it today or be left behind.